Pride Month can be a very challenging time for men, and especially if you're newly out or you're in a place in the world that is not so urban and it's not so out there with your identity and your colors and all of that. It can be very challenging, and sometimes it can cause people to become very frustrated and not really know where their place is. And at this time, it can be very polarizing. I've talked about this before, where people are just wanting to just put it all out there and draw the line in the sand that says, this is who I am and this is who I am not. But for those of us who have really gone under a journey in terms of acceptance of who we are and finding our place in the world and in the community and our families, it can be very tenuous and a little challenging in terms of feeling okay about ourselves. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a few things that I believe are very important when it comes to Pride Month and also finding a sense of belonging in the community. And I recently read this article that it was in Vogue. It was about the actress Zendaya, and she was talking about anxiety. And she says, I think sometimes people assume that because of what they see of me, maybe I'm a certain way. But when I'm not working, I tend to isolate myself. My therapist, family, and friends will tell me, you need to get up and get out. And I never want to. But when I make myself do it, I realize it's actually kind of nice. I'm less anxious. I have to be really intentional about taking care of myself. And this whole notion of, one, feeling like you need to be a certain person in front of the world, and then struggling with the fact that you're really not that person, or maybe you're more private, or you have your work self and then you have your private self at home. I feel there's a lot of parallels in terms of what it's like to be gay, where you have inside all of your history, all of the things that you're interested in, your desires, the things that you're attracted to, the personality, the traumas in the past, the history, the family connections. You have all of that stuff. And then when you come out into the world, and when you're maybe at a big event like a pride parade, or you're at some type of pride-oriented event, or you're seeing it in the news and you're kind of lining it up with that, it can create a little friction where you have this internal sense of who you are, but then you've got all these external displays and you kind of don't know where you sit in that, and it causes you to really want to pull back sometimes. And I can really relate to what Zendaya was talking about, because when I feel like I need to be someone out there in the world, it can be very emotionally taxing and very tiring, very fatiguing. You just want to shut it down and pull away. And in my neighborhood, we're celebrating Pride all month long, and they have all kinds of different street fairs and festivals and stuff. And I was at a kind of like a outdoor music dancing thing or whatever. There's a main stage and they're playing. There's a DJ, and I was noting how a lot of times it seems like it's an individual experience with people when they're dancing. They may be under the influence in some way. They may be having been drinking for a while. They might be under the influence of a substance or alcohol or something like that to ease the anxiety of being out. And it's interesting because where I come from, when you have a time of celebration, especially when you're dancing, it is like we're all in together, and there's a sense of like joy that comes with it. And I was wondering why it has to be such an isolated feeling of you're dancing by yourself, you're in your own world, so to speak. And that, I'm very broadly speaking this way. It's not like everyone is like this, but in general, I had the sense that there was a lot of separate people, but not really with each other. They're in their moment of their high or their alcohol or whatever it is. And again, no judgment on it. I just was remarking that there's a lot that plays into that. And for some people, that can feel, if you're looking at an outsider, it can feel kind of isolating as well, because you want to connect, but at the same time, everyone else is having this fear of connecting in some way. There's whether it's anxiety or whether they feel they need to do these things as well. So I can actually relate to what Zendaya was saying in terms of like, sometimes you have to make yourself do it, and other times if you make yourself do it and you're not really feeling that, you need a little bit of assistance. And so I thought that was interesting. And then I was going back on some notes. I actually attended a online summit. All kinds of speakers from all over the world were talking on the topic of what it means to belong and things like that. And I listened to this. I guess she's a pastor, and her name is Sarah Jakes Roberts. And actually, I believe that she is the daughter of Pastor T.D. Jakes. And no judgment on this at all. I do come from a religious background, and I find that religious talking can sometimes feel very triggering for me. But I was watching her, and I felt like how grounded she was, and how like I was drawn to her because she felt real to me. And she has a background, and she owns her background. I think she had a pregnancy early on, maybe as a teen or something like that. And in the church, that's a no-no, especially if you're the pastor's daughter. That's a no-no for sure. But she walked the road, and so she has some credibility in terms of like what she's been through, and she brings herself to the table. And so I was reading through some of the quotes from that online summit that I was in that she had said, and a few things stuck out to me. She said, "We are all walking around with some kind of messy inside." And I'm like, that is so true. We have like this turmoil that is inside. And when you're putting yourself into an environment where you got to have it all together, or where you have to fit like the norm, it can be very challenging. And in terms of like, if you're out or if you're not out, if you're at an event where it's a pride fest and you got to kind of fit in with all the craziness and what people might call polarizing activities or whatever, where do you fit in all of that? And also the layers of inside the community, where what kind of group or subcategory are you going to be in? So, but we're all walking around with some kind of messy inside. Everyone is dealing with anxiety. Like Zendaya said, sometimes I feel that people assume of what they see of me, maybe I'm a certain way or I have to be a certain way. So I feel like this triggers a lot of stuff for people. And Sarah Jakes Roberts goes on to say, community waters the seeds of our belief system. So community, and that could be anything, and I will talk about the gay community. She goes on to say, what belief is the main character in my story? What do I believe about myself when I'm out there? What kind of story narrative do I have going on? Is my narrative like, I got to have it all together? I need to have the perfect bod. I need to have like great abs. I need to have great clothes and great hair and great set of friends. And I need to like know all the greatest. I need to hold my alcohol. I need, all this kind of stuff. And is that what's driving you? To be accepted, do you need to be that way? And then she said that we mirror others just to survive in that environment. And that is a very true statement. We do what we can to fit in. And I talked about that recently and why people act the way they do during Pride events. Because it's like you want to be like everybody else. And if you've grown up in a situation where you are bullied or harassed or marginalized or anything like that, or made less than, or made to feel less than, you're going to almost want to take on the characteristics of a chameleon to fit in. And I feel that it's not just limited to being in the closet and being around in a community where it's all straight people or where it's all conservative people or whatever it is. It happens in the community as well, where you are like just trying to do what you can to survive. And I felt like about that when I was at that dance with what was disco, and it was all kinds of stuff the DJ was playing. But I felt like everyone was just kind of mirroring each other, and they all were kind of moving the same way, and they were all kind of doing the same thing. And I felt like they're still separate. And I felt like, maybe this is what people do. They do what they can to kind of fit in and to just kind of survive in that environment. And but she encouraged everyone in that audience. I'm going back to Sarah Jakes Roberts. She encouraged everyone to, actually, she said that we become loyal to what's around us and not what's inside us. So the internal messy inside and what's going on us. So on the outside of us. So that environment, we start to like, I need to line up with what is the status quo. I need to be around what's the popular way to be in this environment. And even though you might have a lot of messed up things inside, and you might like feel like low self-worth, or you might not feel like you really measure up to people, you can't let that show. And I feel like that is the thing that kind of keeps that going. But really, what do you believe about yourself? I feel like that is the most important thing. And I feel like when you come out or when you celebrate Pride, that is what the real identity is. It's not like this like faux facade that comes out. It's like, who am I? Who am I in this environment? And who am I going to be? What do I know about myself? She goes on to say that don't let community dry out the seed of your becoming. Don't let it like crush it. Don't let that seed go into the ground and then just like wither away and just be suffocated or whatever. I'm not really good at gardening, you can tell. Those analogies don't really work. But anyhow, you don't let that. You have to kind of emerge out of that, and you have to like be who you are. And I feel like that is the most important thing. No matter if people like that or not, no matter if people feel that that's not the right way to be or that's not the acceptable way to be, and anybody can be any way that they want, and you have to come into that environment. So I know I shared a lot of different types of things, but in terms of Pride Month and in terms of gay pride parades and all of that, really look inside and think about that. Because if you want to really feel that you belong, and if you really want to find your place, I talk about it in Gay Grit a lot. Self-care plus resilience equals belonging. And it comes to self-care in terms of like dealing with that messy inside, accepting that messy inside, feeling okay about yourself no matter where you are on that timeline, being okay, meditating, taking care of the negative thoughts that come in your head, not really over-medicating it with alcohol or substances or anything like that, really pressing into it. And I will encourage you, if you struggle with any of these, to definitely seek professional help. See someone who can really help you, and don't be alone in it. But taking care of yourself, and that is an element of self-care, but then learning the tactics and the strategies on how to deal with it all, how to live in it without those exterior things that help you that boost you, and they're kind of like, I don't like the word crutch, but they kind of like hold you up until you can kind of like be on your own. And I think the whole idea is to be on your own, not on your own like isolated, but like holding up where you don't need some extra external thing to kind of help you through it. You're going to develop that resilience. And I feel that if you have this ability to care for yourself and love yourself and allow yourself to be yourself and to really take care of that messy inside and be okay with it, you will be able to develop that ability to withstand the things that come at you, whether that's finding someone in your life, dating, making friends, all of that, finding your place. Because at the end of it, when you lock those things down, you're going to find a way that you belong. And in Pride Month, it is all about belonging. It is not about an isolated experience. It is about being together and accepting one another. And I know that's probably an unpopular way to say it, but at the end of the day, it's true. Accepting one another where you are. And we can't force the world to accept us for sure, but we can show our true selves. So with that, I wish everyone a happy Pride Month and a good day.